I heard it myself. Why is she even still alive? The laugh that followed wasn't loud, but sharp enough to cut something inside me. I stood behind the wooden gate with a warm glass dish of peach cobbler in my hands. I didn't shake. Not yet. And I didn't walk away. Before we go any further, if my story has found you, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to see just how far my words can travel. I stepped into the backyard like nothing had happened. Past the string lights, the picnic tables, the familiar and unfamiliar faces. Nobody smiled. Someone cleared their throat. "Oh, Margaret, we didn't know you were coming." That was Kelly, my son's wife, the same voice I'd heard behind the fence. "I brought cobbler," I said. Nobody reached for the dish. I carried it to the far end of the table and sat. The folding chair creaked. My back ached, but I stayed upright. The air smelled like grilled burgers and citronella candles, while music blasted from a speaker. Something too loud and too fast for anyone over 40. They laughed, ate, and drank while I just watched. At one point, my son Michael raised his beer. "To family," he said, and everyone clinked glasses. Not one person looked my way. The kids, my grandchildren, ran past me over and over. "No, hi, Grandma." I wondered if they even knew me without the apron and grocery bags. I used to hand them gummy worms in Ziplocs. Kelly eventually came close, her smile tight, the kind she saves for photos. "Did you want a plate?" she asked. "I'm fine," I told her. She nodded too quickly and walked off before I could say more. I stayed until the very end. I stacked plates, folded napkins, wiped the sticky tables while everyone else moved inside. Then I picked up my empty glass dish, still warm from the afternoon sun, and left. Not angry. Not even sad. Just decided. The next morning I made coffee in my smallest pot. 1 cup. I sat at the kitchen table by the window, the same spot where Michael once did his homework, legs too long for the chair. Back then he needed me. Now he barely tolerated me. I spoke to no one that Sunday. The cobbler dish was washed and put away. I only left the house to grab the mail, but I didn't open it. I couldn't bear to see his name on the electric bill again. That house, their house, had once been mine too, or at least the down payment. $40,000 pulled from my retirement when I still believed in second chances and family investments. "Just to help you get started," I'd said. No strings, apparently. No seat at the table either. I dug into the filing cabinet and found the folder labeled Michael House. Inside was the purchase agreement, the deed, and a letter in my own handwriting. I'd gifted the money outright, no repayment expected. "Because you're my son," I had written. Reading that line hurt more than I thought it would. That night I called a woman named Denise. She's not exactly a friend, but she's sharp, used to work in probate. We met years ago at a bridge game and kept in touch. I told her I had questions about property and estate papers. She didn't ask why. He just said, "Come tomorrow. Bring everything." For the first time in weeks I slept soundly. No pills. No pacing. It wasn't peace exactly, more like alignment. That morning I dressed with care. Pressed slacks, real shoes, my good coat, even though the weather didn't call for it. When you're about to shift the shape of your life, you wear buttons. At Denise's house, the air smelled like lemon cleaner and peppermint tea. She flipped through my folder, grunted, and said, "No expectations, no shared title. You gave it away. It's theirs now." I nodded. "I know. But that doesn't mean I'm powerless." She explained what I could still change. Accounts, wills, powers of attorney. "You can't take the house back," she said, "but you can make sure they don't get anything else." That was enough. He handed me a checklist. I folded it, tucked it into my purse, and went home. That evening I sat at the kitchen table in silence. No TV, no music. The quiet, once unbearable, felt welcome. On a blank page I wrote my son's name, Michael. Then I drew a single line through it. By Wednesday I baked a pie I never meant to share. Blueberry with lemon zest, the good crust recipe I used to save for birthdays. This time it was just for me. No reason except because I still could. I carried it onto the porch to cool, my knees covered by the old Afghan Nancy gave me before she passed. The street was quiet. Kids on bikes, a lawn mower buzzing a few houses down. The kind of afternoon where nothing much happens unless you're watching. Around 4, a familiar car pulled up across the street. Kelly's sister, Amanda, stepped out with a tote of groceries and a bottle of wine. She knocked once, then walked right in, certain of her place. I hadn't been invited to that house in 4 months, not since Emma's birthday. That day they'd sat me by the trash bins. So you won't be too close to the music, Mom, Michael had said like it was thoughtful. Emma didn't even open my gift until I'd left. It was a hand-stitched picture book with a note inside. Everything a grandmother could fit on a page. She never mentioned it. Since then I'd seen them twice. Once at the grocery store. Michael rushing, Kelly pretending she didn't see me and produce. Another time at the library where Emma walked right past. No smile, just a look as if I were some neighbor she barely recognized. And still I'd kept a drawer filled with stickers, tiny notebooks, little treasures for the children. For years I'd stocked it faithfully. That day I emptied it. Every last piece went into a paper bag set on the curb with the recycling. I watched it sit there for hours untouched. Like me. That evening a message came from Michael. Hey, Kelly says she might have hurt your feelings on Sunday. Didn't mean anything. She was tired. You know how family events are. I read it twice. Then deleted it. Not replied. Deleted. I wasn't archiving his excuses anymore, turning them into keepsakes. I'd done that too long, wrapping every slight in he didn't mean it or she's under stress. No more. At 7 someone knocked. For a moment I thought maybe, but it was just Sarah from next door holding a container of lentil soup asking if I'd seen her cat. I hadn't seen Sarah's cat, but I invited her in. We sat at the kitchen table and split the pie. She didn't ask about Michael, didn't ask why my eyes felt heavier than usual. She just said the pie was so good it made her knees hum, and we both laughed. I needed that laugh more than I knew. Later, after she left, I picked up a photo from the hallway shelf. Me and Michael, 1987. He was 8, missing a tooth, grinning like I was his whole world. I whispered, I miss you. Not the man, the boy. Then I set the photo face down. From my desk drawer I pulled an envelope labeled legal. Inside were my will, medical directives, and the power of attorney Michael had signed 3 years back when I fell. He'd never asked about it since. I held that paper in my lap a long while. Tomorrow I'd see Denise again. But that night I sat in the dark and said goodbye to the family that only lived in memory. Her office was hushed the next morning, the kind of quiet that wraps around you. Files stacked neatly, a mug that read I read contracts for fun, and a jar of peppermints no one touched. I want to start with the power of attorney, I said, sliding the document forward. Revoke it today. Denise peered at me over her glasses. Are you sure, Margaret? That's a big shift. I'm sure. She nodded. We'll file today. I'll notarize it, you just sign. As she printed forms, my heart stayed steady. This wasn't revenge. It was repair. I also want to update the will, I said. Remove Michael as executor. Remove him entirely. She paused. Cut him out completely? I nodded. He has a house, a job, a family. He doesn't need what I've saved. He's shown me what he values. She didn't argue, just opened a clean template. Who should take his place? Not sure yet, I admitted. Maybe a professional. Someone who doesn't look through me like I'm a loose end. She made a note. And the house. No one in the family. Sell it. The proceeds go to a cause. I pulled a worn brochure from my purse. The women's shelter on Franklin Avenue. I'd stayed there once before Michael was born. Denise didn't speak right away. Just typed. You're very clear about this. I've been unclear long enough. When the documents were ready, I signed in deliberate strokes. She notarized, stapled, handed me copies. At the door she said, if you change your mind, call. I won't. Outside the sun shone but the air bit colder. Some days you carry your own weather. I pulled my coat close and walked slowly to my car. At home the phone blinked. One message. Hey Mom, got your voicemail about legal stuff. Not sure what's going on. Kelly said you were acting weird last weekend. Anyway, call me, okay? I deleted it. Then blocked the number. The next morning I called a locksmith. A young man, polite, replaced the front and back door locks without question. When he handed me the new keys I made 4 copies. 1 key stayed in my purse, 1 in the fireproof box, 1 with Sarah next door, and 1 in my safe deposit box. That night I slept better. No dreams, just rest. Saturday morning carried the smell of rain, soft and metallic, settling into everything. I pulled on my boots and stepped outside. The garden had been neglected, marigolds drooping like tired shoulders. I clipped them back slow and steady. The shears felt like control in my hands. By noon I drove to First National Credit Union. The branch was calm, just the low hum of printers and polite voices. I asked for a manager and a woman named Tasha appeared, brisk but kind. She led me into her glass-walled office. I'd like to review all authorized users on my accounts, I said. She clicked through her screen. You have one cosigner and one card holder, Michael J. Harris. That your son? Used to be. She hesitated. Would you like to remove him? Erase him completely, I answered. Cancel the card, reissue in my name, change security questions and lock the account unless I come in myself. She nodded and started typing. While she worked, I looked at the pothose plant on her desk, its glossy leaves trailing toward the floor. I once had one in Michael's nursery. He tried to eat the dirt once and I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the diaper bag. Tasha printed the changes and slid the papers across. We can also set alerts or create a trust if you'd like. Not yet, I said. I'm still building the next version of my life. She smiled like she understood. When I left the bank, I didn't feel victorious. Just clean. At home, I opened the hall closet and pulled out the fireproof box. Inside were my most important documents. The deed, birth certificates, insurance policies. I took Michael's birth certificate not to destroy but to separate. I filed it under history away from everything else. That night I opened my old address book, tabs yellowed from the 90s. Under C I drew a line through Michael, Kelly, Emma and Josh. Then I flipped to D and wrote a new name. Denise Moore, attorney, trust and estate. I slept with the windows open, rain pattering softly on the roof. No nightmares. Just a steady, quiet knowing. On Sunday, Sarah came again, this time with banana muffins. We sat in my kitchen talking about the stray cat under her porch. We named him Vernon for no reason at all. She stayed past lunch. After she left, I read the Sunday paper cover to cover. I underlined a listing for a small apartment on the edge of town. 2 rooms, ground floor, washer and dryer included. Just enough. I clipped it out and pinned it to the fridge. Not for today but for soon. I wasn't running. I was preparing. Because next time someone asked, why is she even still alive? I wanted the answer to be simple. To reclaim everything I'd given away too cheaply. On Monday I called the real estate attorney Denise had recommended, a man named David Collins. His voice was steady, low, the kind you trust before you even meet his eyes. I told him I needed to discuss title changes and property transfers. He gave me an appointment for Thursday. In the meantime I gathered everything. The deed, property tax records, 2 decades of repair invoices. The new roof, the plumbing, the furnace Michael once said wasn't worth fixing but I paid for anyway. Each receipt was a thread in the story they wanted to forget. I made copies, labeled folders, and by the end my dining table looked like the war room of a woman nobody expected to fight back. That night the phone rang again. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. Margaret, it's Kelly. We don't understand what's happening. Michael's been trying to call. Emma's been asking about you. We're all worried. Please call us back. I shut off the machine. The lie hung in the air like stale perfume. Emma hadn't spoken to me in weeks. Not even on my birthday, which passed with nothing more than a Facebook note from Kelly. Hope you're having a great one, under a photo of their dog. That day I'd sat alone in my kitchen and baked a single cupcake just to mark the occasion. They weren't worried. They were unsettled. And that's different. On Thursday I put on my navy cardigan, the one with the pearl buttons that still shone in the light. I arrived at David's office 20 minutes early. His receptionist offered coffee but I declined. My hands didn't need caffeine. David was kind in that quiet, intelligent way of someone who listens more than he speaks. I liked him right away. I want the house in a trust, I told him once we sat down. No family access. Not now, not ever. He nodded. A living trust is simple. You'll be the trustee and beneficiary for now. When you pass, the assets can go wherever you choose. I want it sold. Everything liquidated. The proceeds go to Franklin Women's Shelter in full. His eyebrow lifted. No family inheritance? No. He didn't push, just wrote it down. And remove Michael from any documents. Bank accounts, insurance, proxies, anywhere he might still appear. I'll prepare everything. We can notarize here. You'll need to update your will as well. Already started with my estate lawyer. He gave a small smile. Then we're just making it official. We spent nearly 2 hours reviewing clauses, signing forms, setting contingencies. He explained each piece with patience and precision. When we finished, he handed me a slim binder. This is your trust packet. Keep it safe. We'll file the rest this week. I thanked him and left feeling solid, like my spine had real weight again. On the way home, I stopped by a bakery on Main Street. I hadn't been inside for years. The girl at the counter was new. She called me ma'am and slipped me a free cookie for being lovely. I bought a lemon tart and ate it in the car, sunlight warming my knees through the windshield. At home I sat in the quiet and reread the trust papers. My name, my signature, my rules. No loopholes, no soft spots. For the first time in years I didn't feel like someone waiting to be chosen. I had chosen myself. That evening as the sky turned, a car pulled into my driveway. Michael. He stepped out slowly, unsure if he'd be welcomed. I didn't open the door. He knocked once, then again. Finally his voice came through. Mom, please. I don't know what's happening. You changed the locks. You blocked my number. I just want to talk. He didn't sound angry, just lost. Like someone realizing the map wasn't in his hands anymore. Just tell me what's going on. I stayed quiet. After a while he left. 10 minutes later I stood and watched from the window as he backed out, his face worn behind the wheel. Then I sat back down and poured tea, sugar, no milk. My mother always said if they don't hear you softly, they'll hear the silence louder. On Friday I trimmed the hedges, swept the porch, even replaced the cracked bulb above the door. Not for visitors, but because I'd be leaving one day and I wanted the house to know I still cared. It wasn't the house's fault. I'd lived there 43 years. Moved in when Michael was 5, when he lined toy dinosaurs along the sill and named them like classmates. This one's Rebecca, this one's Mrs. Fulton. It had once been my dream house. 3 bedrooms, a wide front window, a little attic I turned into a sewing room. I'd painted every wall myself, tiled the kitchen after Frank died, even learned to clean gutters when neighbors said I should just wait for my son. I stopped waiting a long time ago. That afternoon I walked through each room with a notepad. In the guest room stood an old dresser I'd once offered Michael and Kelly. Too dated, they said. In the hallway hung a cross-stitch from my sister. Peace lives here. The wall behind it was brighter than the paint around it. In the back bedroom, Michael's old curtains still showed tiny sailboats. I'd meant to replace them years ago. The closet held a dusty box of baseball cards and a shoebox labeled private. I didn't open it. Instead I sat on the bed and looked out at the crooked apple tree. Time had bent it left, but every spring it still bloomed, stubborn and bright. I remembered the day Michael got stuck in that tree, wailing until I dragged a ladder out barefoot, furious. The way he hugged me after, still shaking. Don't tell anyone, he whispered. And I never did. I remembered the first time he brought Kelly home, how she looked around the house like it was a motel waiting on a review. It's cozy, she'd said. I remembered holding Emma for the first time, her crumpled red cheeks. Michael cried that day, whispering she's perfect. And I remembered the Christmas Kelly told me not to bring food because the kids don't eat old-fashioned stuff. I brought a pie that Christmas anyway. Emma never touched it. Josh said it tasted like soap. They laughed, and that was the year I stopped baking for their holidays. But I never stopped baking. I stood and wrote on my notepad, leave the curtains. Take the quilt. In the kitchen I opened the cabinet above the stove. My baking cabinet. Everything's still in its place. Vanilla, cinnamon, brown sugar, the heavy measuring cups Frank gave me for our 10th anniversary. I wrapped them carefully and packed them in a padded box labeled Keep. The next day I called the apartment complex I'd clipped from the paper. A kind woman named Melissa answered. Yes, we still have a 1-bedroom available. First floor, lots of light, very quiet. Mostly retirees and teachers. Do you allow cats? I asked. We do. I don't have one, but I liked knowing I could. I scheduled a viewing for Tuesday. That night I sat on the porch with a blanket and tea. The street was still, only a few porch lights and a faint wind chime next door. I thought of all the nights I'd waited here for headlights, for footsteps, for someone to remember me. But not this night. I was simply sitting. No expectation. No hunger. Just me, the cool air, and my name still mine. I thought of Michael. I didn't miss him. Not really. I missed the idea of him. The boy who built Lego castles on the coffee table, who gripped my hand too tight crossing streets. That boy was gone, replaced by a man who saw only his own needs. Maybe one day I'd mourn him. But not now. Now I had packing to do. The call came Sunday evening. Not from Michael but from Emma. Hi Grandma, she said, her voice smaller than I remembered. Is this still your number? It is. Pause. I found it in Dad's old phone. He didn't know I was looking. I waited. I wanted to say I'm sorry, for the backyard, for everything. I didn't rush to comfort her. That instinct, to shield others from their shame, I'd let it go. What are you sorry for? I asked gently. She drew a breath. For not talking to you, for pretending not to see you at the library. For laughing when Mom said what she said. It wasn't funny, you just wanted to belong, I finished. Yes. I didn't forgive her right away. Real apologies aren't like that. But I did say thank you for calling. Can I see you? She asked. Just me. I thought about the pie drawer I'd emptied, the Christmas cards I kept sending long after they stopped coming back, the way she once gripped my hand on icy sidewalks. All right. Come tomorrow after school. Just you. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath all summer. I will. I promise. I hung up and sat quietly, my tea cooling in my hands. Monday came gray and drizzly, the kind of day that softens everything. I baked banana bread, not for anyone, just to warm the house. At 4:12, Emma knocked. She stood on the porch in a hoodie 2 sizes too big, sneakers untied, her eyes rimmed with something that wasn't just mascara. I wasn't sure you'd open the door, she said. I wasn't sure you'd knock, I answered. Inside we sat at the kitchen table. Emma picked at the bread while I poured tea. Mom says you've gone crazy, she said, not unkindly. That you're cutting us out. I'm not cutting. I'm choosing, I told her. There's a difference. She nodded like she almost understood. I don't hate you, I added. I don't hate you either, she whispered. I think I just copied how they acted. I didn't question it until I started missing you. That sentence folded something inside me. I want to come back, she said. If that's allowed. I looked at her. The same eyes Michael had at 8 before the world taught him how to be unkind. You can come back, I said. But not for pie. Not for gifts. Only for truth. I can do that. She stayed an hour. We didn't talk about Michael or Kelly. Just school, books, a cat she wanted but wasn't allowed to get. She left with another slice of banana bread wrapped in foil. I watched her walk down the driveway until she turned the corner. I didn't feel hopeful. I felt honest. That night I wrote in my journal, maybe some doors don't need to be slammed. Just gently locked from the inside, with a window left cracked for the ones who come alone and knock with care. The next days passed quietly. I packed slowly, one drawer, one memory at a time. Not for sentiment, but to know what I was keeping and why. If something didn't make me stronger, it didn't come with me. The apartment viewing was Thursday afternoon. That morning I brewed strong coffee, dressed in slacks and a blouse. Not because anyone would judge, but because new chapters deserve clean seams. The complex was simpler than the brochure showed, but it felt right. Brick buildings, tidy flowers, a bench under a linden tree. Melissa, the manager, greeted me warmly. Ground floor, she said, unlocking Unit 1B. South-facing windows. Quiet neighbors. Heats included. The space was small, yes, but honest. No echoes, no pretense. Just light and walls waiting for new stories. I ran my hand across the laminate counter. It wasn't marble, but it was mine. The stove had 4 burners. The fridge hummed like it kept a secret. I'll take it, I said. You don't want to think it over? Melissa asked. Already have. That evening I signed the paperwork, paid the deposit and set move-in for the first of the month. 3 weeks. Enough time to leave with care, not haste. That night, among half-filled boxes, I wrote a new address card. Margaret Harris, 128 Willowview, Apartment 1B. No forwarding for Michael. I smiled as I tucked it in my drawer. 2 days later Michael came again. I heard his car before I saw him. The engine idled out front like he was rehearsing. When he finally stepped onto the porch I met him at the door but didn't open it. You blocked me, he said, not angry, just confused. You changed everything. Yes. Why? I studied his face. Older than I remembered. Or maybe I'd stopped seeing it clearly long ago. I heard what Kelly said in the backyard. And I heard you laugh. He shifted. I didn't mean it. You know how she is, Michael said. He talks out of turn. It was a joke. Oh, Michael. A joke has a punchline. That was just cruelty wrapped in silence. I didn't know you were there, he muttered. That's the problem. He blinked. So that's it? You're erasing me over one bad afternoon? I wanted to laugh. One afternoon. That was just the final straw on years of being sidelined, pitted, ignored, tolerated. A life where I was convenient, never considered. I'm not erasing you, I said. I'm finally choosing myself. His frown deepened. Emma said you're letting her visit. I am. So she gets a pass. Well, she asked to come back. You waited until my name started vanishing from papers, he pressed. This isn't about money. It's about dignity. He looked past me down the hallway, maybe expecting to see the old table with his school photos or the basket of holiday cards. But the space was clear, uncluttered. "I'll always be your son," he said. "And I'll always be the woman who gave you more than she should have." I stepped back and closed the door. Not slammed, just shut. Through the window I saw him linger, then leave. That night I didn't feel triumphant. I cried for 7 minutes. I timed it. Not because I regretted it, but because endings deserve respect. Then I made tea, folded another box and placed it with the pile marked keep. The kitchen table held only what mattered now. 1 teacup, a lamp, a shallow bowl of oranges. Everything else had been packed or given away. I didn't need much anymore. Just what fit inside one small life. On Sunday afternoon I hosted tea for the first time in years. Not for birthdays or holidays, just for warmth. Marcia came first, limping slightly with her bag of crossword books. Then Ida in her fur-trimmed coat, though it was only 52 degrees. And Nora, my old choir friend, still wearing perfume that smelled like early spring in old envelopes. They brought no food, though each had offered. I baked a simple spice cake, enough for 1 slice each, with a single wedge left over. We sat by the windows in soft afternoon light. I poured tea into my chipped blue china, the set that had survived 2 moves and even a fall back in '94. No one asked about Michael or Emma or the house. We talked about shoulder pain, grocery prices. Ida shared how a bus driver once waited while she fumbled for change. Marcia said her niece got engaged to a boy who wore socks with cartoon whales. Nora mentioned the library's poetry group and asked if we'd join. It was the most comfort I'd felt in years. At one point the room quieted, not from awkwardness but fullness. And I said it. "I'm moving." 3 pairs of brows lifted, but no one interrupted. "I found a small place across town. I'll be gone by the end of the month." "Does your son know?" Ida asked gently. "He doesn't need to." Marcia nodded like that was enough. They stayed another hour, helped wash the cups, wrapped the extra slice of cake in foil, promised to call soon. When they left, the house was still but not empty. I walked through each room again, not as farewell but as blessing. In the hallway I stopped by the shelf where I once kept framed photos of Michael's family. Weddings, birthdays, first days of school. Most were packed away, unsure if I'd want to hang them again. Except one remained. A photo of me and Frank, taken by a neighbor the day we finished painting the porch. We were both splattered with paint in that photo, holding brushes like trophies. He was laughing, I was squinting into the sun. I wrapped it in a kitchen towel and placed it in the box marked Essentials. That night I wrote in my journal, 3 women drank tea in my kitchen today. No one interrupted. No one explained. No one corrected. We just existed together. That entry meant more than all the Christmas newsletters I used to send, those hollow reports stuffed with fake happiness and forced gratitude. The next morning I woke to a voicemail from Kelly. "Shirt cold. I heard you spoke to Emma. Michael says you've been hostile. This is your way of getting attention, it's really sad." I played it once, then deleted it. Hostile. That's what they called a woman who finally spoke. That's what they called silence once it stopped serving them. I opened the back door and stepped into the yard. The air smelled of wet leaves and fading grass. Barefoot, I crossed the lawn I'd mowed myself for decades. At the corner where the garden used to be, the soil was still dark. I knelt, knees aching, and pressed 3 marigold seeds into the earth. Not to bloom, but to mark something. The doorbell rang at 10:42 a.m. Wednesday. Not the postman, he came closer to noon. Not Sarah either. She always knocked like she was half apologizing. This knock was practiced. Polite. When I opened the door, Kelly stood there, heels too high for the weather, a coat the color of wet bone. Lipstick perfect, eyes too tight. "Margaret," she said, like reading the name off a clipboard. "Kelly." She didn't ask to come in. She walked past me as if the story still belonged to her, and stood in the middle of my living room, hands clutched in front of her purse like she was about to pitch a deal. "This is getting out of hand," she began. "You've blocked Michael. You've changed your accounts. Emma is sneaking around to call you. And now I hear you're moving." "All true," I said calmly. She blinked, unprepared for no resistance. "We're your family," she said, pressing on the word like it was an anchor. "You can't just erase us over a bad day." I studied her. Confrontation looked like jewelry on her. Worn for display, not from feeling. It wasn't one day. It was years of polite dismissal, lukewarm invitations, being tolerated instead of welcomed. One day only pulled the curtain back. Her jaw tightened. We never asked you for anything. That's the problem. You never asked. You only expected. I don't know what Michael ever did to deserve this, she snapped. He's a good man. Good men don't laugh when someone asks why their mother is still alive, I said steady. She stepped closer. You think you're punishing him? You're punishing Emma. She's confused, she's hurt, and you're using her to prove a point, Kelly said. I paused. Not because she was right, but because guilt still knew my name too easily. Emma came to me alone. She's 16. She knows what a closed door feels like. Kelly scoffed. You've always made things dramatic. No, I said, my voice sharper now. I've always made things possible. The down payment on your house. The babysitting. The casseroles. The last-minute rides. And the silent endurance at birthdays when I was seated behind centerpieces so I wouldn't ruin the aesthetic. You're exaggerating. You've always been difficult. I smiled, not kindly. Is that what women become when they stop handing over their silence? Her mouth opened, then shut. She noticed the stacked boxes by the door. You're really doing it. I am. And what happens when you're alone in that apartment? When no one checks in? When Emma forgets to call? I'll still have myself, I answered. And I'd rather be alone with honesty than surrounded by people who flinch at my presence. She looked around as if the house itself might take her side. You're throwing everything away. Oh. I'm finally choosing what to keep. I set my trust binder on the table. Kelly stood a moment longer, then lifted her purse. At the door she turned back. Don't expect us to come running when you change your mind. I'm not running, I said. And I won't. The door closed behind her like punctuation. Later, Emma texted me. She came home fuming. You okay? Perfectly, I replied. Some doors need closing. Doesn't mean you're on the other side. She sent a heart, then, still bringing cookies Thursday. Don't bail. I wouldn't. Thursday morning, Denise called. Everything's signed, filed, confirmed. The trust is active. Your accounts are protected. Your will is updated. You're now the sole decision maker for every inch of your life. Thank you, I said, 2 words heavier than any confession. I'm proud of you, Margaret. I smiled into the phone. Funny how people say that only after you start saying no. By noon I was at the bank, binder in hand. The clerk was young, maybe 25, but she handled the documents like something sacred. We'll update the beneficiaries immediately, she said. And this authorizes removal of your son from all access? It does. She nodded with calm efficiency I once mistook for coldness. Now I understood she was simply prepared. Like me. Afterward, I walked 2 blocks to the post office and picked up a key for a new P.O. box. When asked for a forwarding address, I declined. Anyone who truly needed to find me already knew how. Back home, afternoon light softened through the curtains. I brewed tea and pulled out the last envelope. My medical directive. A copy for my new doctor, another for the safe box. It felt like stitching the final thread in a dress I'd been mending for years. At 3:30, Emma arrived with chocolate chip cookies in a plastic tub and a magazine quiz. What kind of flower are you? We sat on the porch eating cookies, circling answers in pencil. Apparently I was a lilac. Quiet, observant, easily underestimated. Emma laughed when she read hers. A marigold. Resilient, impossible to root out. That checks, she said, grinning. When the cookies were gone we just sat. She swung her legs under the bench. Dad says you're turning your back on family. I didn't answer right away. He's hurt, she added, softer. Not that it excuses anything, but it's all he talks about. Then he's finally talking about something that matters, I said. She looked down. I miss the old you. No, I told her. You miss the version of me who erased herself quietly. That wasn't me. That was survival. She nodded. I get that now. We sat longer before she pulled out a folded paper. It's just a sketch. I don't know if it's any good. I opened it. A pencil drawing of a woman seated at a chessboard. On her side only 2 pieces. On the other a full set. But her pieces were winning. She's not done, Emma said. She's just starting to play her game. I couldn't speak. I just squeezed her hand. Can I hang this in the new apartment? I asked. Her whole face lit up. Really? As the sky turned peach, she stood to leave. I know this doesn't fix everything, but I want to be around. You'll have me. I will, I said. But only as you are. No pretending. He grinned. Marigolds don't pretend. After she left, I sat with the drawing in my lap. The house was quiet. All the paperwork signed, all decisions made. No more permissions to seek, no more waiting for invitations that never came. It was done, not bitterly but firmly. Tomorrow I'd finish packing. And after that, something better than hope. Space. Moving day came quietly without ceremony. I woke before dawn, made coffee in the same chipped mug I'd used for over 20 years, and stood barefoot in the kitchen one last time. The linoleum was cool under my feet. The light hadn't yet reached the windows, but I didn't need it. I knew every inch of the house in the dark. The movers arrived at 9 sharp. 2 young men, polite and quick, a little surprised by how few boxes I had. Each was labeled kitchen, keep, donate, memories, and one marked do not open yet. They didn't ask. By noon the house was nearly empty. The walls looked tired, like they were exhaling. I walked each room slowly, fingers grazing surfaces, not clinging but thanking. In the hallway I paused where Michael's height marks had once been. Painted over now, but I could still feel the grooves if I pressed lightly. 5, 7, 11, a lifetime of inches you couldn't erase. I didn't cry. Instead, I placed a small envelope in the top drawer of the empty hall table. Inside, 1 key and a note. This house taught me everything. Thank you. I locked the front door and didn't look back. The apartment smelled of paint and beginnings. The mover set the boxes where I asked. I tipped them too much. I didn't care. Melissa from the office stopped by with a welcome packet and a small plant. Something green, she said, for your window. It was a tiny succulent in a ceramic pot shaped like a cat. I set it beside the sink and whispered, I think we'll get along. The first thing I unpacked was the kettle. The second was Emma's drawing. I hung it by the window where the light softened the pencil lines until they looked freshly drawn. That night I ate toast on the balcony wrapped in a blanket. No noise, just wind and the faint hum of someone else's TV through the wall. I didn't feel lost. I felt spacious. The next morning I opened the last box. Inside were my essentials. 2 dresses, a pair of shoes, a tin of buttons I'd collected over decades, and a letter folded in thirds, edges yellowed. Frank's handwriting. The one he wrote before his surgery, the one he didn't survive. Something goes wrong, don't fold in. Stay open. Stay warm. Live with your hands unclenched. You have more strength than you know. I placed it in the drawer with my will. That afternoon I baked in the new oven. Banana bread, more ritual than recipe by now. The smell filled the apartment. I closed my eyes and smiled. At 4, Emma arrived, her school bag on one shoulder, a faint bruise on her cheek from volleyball. I brought jam, she said, holding up a jar. Fig and something. Sounded like you. We sat at the little table by the window, warm bread between us. She spread the jam thick, then looked up. Is this what peace feels like? Not all of it, I said. But a corner, yes. She ate with both hands, crumbs trailing just like when she was small. She told me about a boy who drew a beard on his mask and got sent to the office, her English teacher who said 34 times in one lecture, how Kelly was furious that I'd turned down a birthday invitation. She said, you're making a spectacle of yourself. I'm not making anything. I'm just not showing up where I'm not wanted. I told her I wanted to come anyway. She said she couldn't stop me, but she wouldn't drive me. You walked? No, I borrowed Grandpa's bike. Sold, but it got me here. That made me smile. Frank would have liked that. Leave it on the balcony, I told her. We'll fix it up together. Her eyes lit up. Really? Really? After she left, I watched the sun sink behind the trees. I didn't miss the house. I didn't miss Michael's silences or Kelly's sideways smiles. I didn't miss the old version of myself that whispered, maybe next time they'll see you. Because now I saw myself. And I didn't need permission to exist. 1 week after the move, the house sold. The realtor said the offer was just above asking. An older couple, no kids, looking for quiet and history. I almost laughed. They'd found both. I never went back. David handled the sale with power of attorney. When it closed, he called, it's done. I thanked him, hung up, and stood in the middle of my apartment. It wasn't large, but every inch of it was mine. I opened a new account for the shelter donation, not in my will, but now. I walked in, handed the check to the director. This is for the women who leave without shoes, I told her. She stared at the amount and cried. I didn't. I'd done my crying. This wasn't grief. This was intention. That night I made soup. Not for anyone, not for an occasion, just because I liked how leek softened in butter. The radio hummed low, some ad-free jazz station. Saxophones, soft rhythms, no applause required. I ate in my robe standing by the stove. No table setting, no explanation, just hunger met. Around 8:30 my buzzer rang. Unexpected. When I answered, Emma's voice. "Can I come up?" She carried a shoebox, sleeves pulled over her hands. "What's inside?" "Stuff I'm not ready to keep at home. A notebook. A charger. A necklace Kelly wouldn't like. And a photo of us at the zoo when she was 5, chocolate still smeared on her cheek." I'd forgotten that day. "I hadn't," she said, settling cross-legged on the floor. "I don't want to live there when I'm older. With them, I mean. You won't have to. You get to choose. Even if they hate me for it. Especially then." He thought a moment. "Do you think people can change?" "Sometimes. But the better question is, can they stop pretending?" Her eyes lifted. "Are you still angry?" "No. I'm finished." Emma stayed until almost 10. We didn't talk about Michael. She didn't ask and I didn't offer. Some threads don't need tying. When she left, she hugged me tighter than ever. The next morning I walked to the corner store for milk. The cashier nodded like I already belonged. "You're the banana bread lady," he said. "The kid with the bike talks about you." "That's me," I smiled. I bought a newspaper just because I could and read it on the balcony, feet tucked beneath me. The world still turned. Bills still came. But inside, the silence was no longer heavy. It was restful. Later that week a letter arrived. No return address but Michael's hand. "Mom, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if you want me to. I said things I can't unsay. I let things happen. I should have stopped them. I don't know how to be the man you deserve. And I'm scared it's too late to learn. But Emma talks about you every day now. She's braver and that came from you. I'm sorry. I hope one day you'll let me try." I folded the letter into a drawer. Not forgiveness. Not refusal. Just space. That night I wrote, "I am not angry anymore. Not afraid. I am not waiting at windows or porches. I am not a forgotten guest at someone else's table. I am building my own." On my 73rd birthday I woke without an alarm. No balloons, no calls, just light through clean curtains and quiet. 2 pancakes with honey and a pear, Frank's photo on a chair. Well, we made it, didn't we? At noon Emma arrived with tulips and a painted card. 2 porch chairs, one empty. "Thanks for keeping a seat for me." We had tea. She told me her plans. "Can I use your name?" "Only for the truth." Before leaving she said, "You look like someone who doesn't flinch." That evening I read a book I'd put off for years, then stopped. No need to finish, just to prove I could. The next day I sent a donation, planted basil that slowly leaned toward the window. A text from Michael. "Happy birthday, Mom. I haven't earned a card yet. Just wanted you to know I'm still here." I didn't reply. Some apologies just need space to land. Later Marcia and Ida came with pie. We laughed about knees and politics. When they left, the apartment wasn't empty. It hummed with the right kind of noise. Before bed I wrote, "I live to remember my name. To set my own table. To keep the door open for those who knock with clean hands. And if my story stayed with you, tap that like button and subscribe. It lets me know you're here and it helps this story reach the people who might need it most."